Hello from the Steam Chamber, game fans, and welcome to the 14th episode of Greenlight Highlights, where we take a look at 6 of the best Greenlight games that have been added to the Greenlight system over the course of the past week. Now, from now on, this video should be going up every Monday without fail, with maybe a few exceptions, providing there are enough games out there. The first game we're going to take a look at this week is Sword and Board, which is a sort of action puzzle game with some adventure and RPG elements. You play the part of a kid with a very overactive imagination, and you have to battle your way through imaginary levels and imaginary enemies, including things like cardboard forests and pillow fort dungeons, to solve various different challenging puzzles in order to find the lost pieces of your video game console. Now, this game has a very large focus on exploration and puzzle solving and has quite a retro look about it. The game has some really nice looking assets, and as far as I know, it's pretty much been funded on Kickstarter. I think they're just a few dollars short, and they've got a couple of days to go, so do check that one out. Right, the second game we are looking at today is a very successful Korean free-to-play MMO, which is Remnant Knights, or more specifically Remnant Knights Heroes of Kazmari. Now, as I said, this is a free-to-play MMO. It is more of a casual MMO than a lot of the other MMOs out there. It very much focuses on various different daily offers and daily rewards and daily progression perks, so there are some similarities there with things like Guild Wars. It's set in very much an typical Asian MMO environment. It's set within a very cutesy looking school environment, and it has some really interesting artwork. It has some quite nice animations, and it actually looks like it will be quite fun. Now, I know there are a lot of free-to-play MMOs out there, so you might want to go give this a try. I always say if it's a free-to-play, then you might as well just give it a go, even if it's only an hour, just sort of so you can get a rough idea of what's going on. Sometimes things like MMOs don't transfer very well when you watch someone else play them. Sometimes you really do have to just give them a go first. This week's third game is something a bit more interesting. This is Rogue Shooter, which is a mashup of an FPS shooter and a typical roguelike. Now, this one's quite interesting. Think of it as a mashup between Borderlands and something like Sword of the Stars, The Pit, with some real sort of RPG elements in there. There's quite a nice little graphical style going on, very much sort of comic book. I wouldn't say cel-shaded exactly, but there is some cel-shading in there. But very much got a cartoon comic book look to it. Some of the assets do look very Borderlands at times. However, of course, the graphical fidelity isn't anywhere near there. The settings are randomized and procedurally generated, as far as I'm aware, and look-wise, it does very much play like a first-person Sword of the Stars, The Pit. There's some really interesting little unlocks going on in the game. There's some real huge amount of various different weapons, and the game actually features various mini games such as, your standard computer hacking mini games and such. There's quite a few things to unlock, and they are promising quite a bit of replayability. The next game it has something of an identity crisis. This is Chaos in the Darkness, which is looks very much inspired by the Dungeon Siege games. However, they're not quite sure what sort of genre it is. They are billing it as something of a MOBA, as it has all the typical MOBA elements you would expect, but they are also calling it a general RPG and a roguelike. However, they're also trying to bill it as something of an MMO, because you can have 4 players on a team. However, I don't think they understand what that first M in MMO is for, as 3 teams of 4 players does not make something massively multiplayer. However, it's quite a nice looking game. There is a bit of single player in there and a bit of multiplayer, and if you're a general fan of fantasy and Magic style games, then it definitely might be worth having a look. It's got some nice polished graphics going on. They've had a bit of an update recently, and you know, maybe the genre mix aside, it might be worth you checking out. Now, the fifth and probably my favourite game of this week's episode is, yes, another 16-bit RPG. This is Gheldia, which is your standard 16-bit RPG, which sees you going on a quest on an island of monsters in which you must work to unlock a terrible spire where you will have the final showdown with a beast that was recently awakened and unlocked into the world, or rather unleashed into the world. It has everything you would expect from this style of game, and it does actually have controller support from the start, which is quite nice. There are some really nice graphics, there's a nice story that puts some real effort into this game and haven't rushed it out too quickly. The only thing I would like to have seen is maybe a bit of multiplayer, as it would have made it stand out, as there really are so many of these 16-bit RPGs out there now. However, if you're into the genre, then this one is definitely one that will stand out from the rest in the crowd. Our sixth and final game is a platformer, which is called Aaru's Awakening. Now, this is a really nice looking game. You play the part of a bird-like creature that has to make it through the world using two abilities, charge and teleportation. And all the platforming levels are built around these two abilities, so you have to make your way through the levels to eventually find and defeat an evil being which is upsetting the balance between dawn, day, dusk and night. The game's been created with a really nice graphical style. Everything is started on paper and then eventually transferred to the computer, so it adds this really nice, unique hand-drawn art style, which is just doesn't match anything else out there. It's a really great looking game and one of the best looking platformers, you know, graphic wise, that I've seen in a long time. Some really nice artwork there. Right, that's all we have time for this week, I'm afraid. Thank you very much for watching as always, and thank you very much for putting up with me this week, as I've got something of a throat infection, so it has been a bit of a chore trying to get through the recordings this week. Thank you for watching again, and please do like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and please do not forget to check out the games. Thanks.